Let's go!
There were some people that worked at Smash GG before. Microsoft picked up Smash GG, which is like the big tournament database, record site / organizational, all that kind of stuff for fighting games. And there's a pretty crazy story from a Smash GG employee that closely ties into some of the efforts that we had back in the exact same time frame, maybe giving an indication of where Killer Instinct is at now. And I think, like, I'm probably one of the very few that can talk about this on public record just based on the stuff that I know from the game's development back in the day to, you know, just based on how a lot of devs at Microsoft sort of think and where they're at now. To sort of shed some light on this situation, it's a pretty crazy story. It came from Contra on Twitter talking about how recently got laid off, I'm thinking from Smash GG. They were discussing the fact that there were a lot of things that went right and wrong at Smash GG, Start GG over the years. Can't stop lingering how there was one event called Sajam's Lockout, which is something that did not exist, that drove him insane. How 1 year after Microsoft acquired the platform and brought everyone on board as official Microsoft employees, things were really good. They were investing in the product, mostly a rebrand, but they wanted to put some money into a few DAU driving initiatives. Okay, cool. So it's like the guy that drove the ship at Microsoft initially was great. He knew the original team, knew more than anyone else about the community and the product, so he just let people do what they do. Cool. That kind of sounds like how Sony approached Evo, right? Just for comparison's sake. Like, let them do their thing still. Let the show run itself by the people that usually run the show. Yeah, okay, sounds good. After a lengthy onboarding and getting used to everything, everyone on the original Smash GG team was given an opportunity to pitch a project that's going to drive their daily active users. That's what the AU is. For example, this is when we really invested in fantasy on the platform. In the spring of 21, it was his idea when everyone was brought in on net play in games and lacked rollback netcode was being clowned on. You know, this is 2021. This is like the early rise of rollback netcode, especially when the pandemic was in the height of all of its crazy bullshit. His idea was to put on a tournament that bridged all the different gaps, and he knew just the game, which was KI. So this guy had some faith that, hey, KI is a pretty popular game. It's had a resurgence in the past few years in some minor way. Why was KI a good call at this point? Well, because Killer Instinct was in a fairly decent spot. There was a campaign that I ran in 2019 called hashtag Bring Back KI. This was a Twitter campaign that effectively got worldwide trending in the first like 24 hours to first month that we were putting effort into it. This is 5 years ago, chat. A couple years later, hosted a tournament, but I effectively had a lot of the KI developers come on my stream. We talk about it. We just talk about what makes Killer Instinct so great, why it's one of the greatest fighting games ever, why many people still agreed, even in 2019, that yeah, actually Killer Instinct is one of like the top 5, top 10 best fighting games ever. Like a lot of people just feel this way about it. I think I can emphatically say this was 5+ years ago, and I kept on board with a lot of the folks that made KI, obviously. But a lot of the folks that made KI moved to other departments. Microsoft shifted around a whole bunch in this time frame. Most of the teams and squads that were put together to make Killer Instinct got just siphoned into other divisions. The big heads, the big executive heads, everybody was just off doing completely different things now. And it felt like at the time, Killer Instinct was effectively lost to time. One of the things that procced this was that I went to E3 2019, the last E3, and at that E3, I would say enlightening conversations with a variety of folks that I won't mention that were relevant to Killer Instinct in many ways, that had not been working at Microsoft or were still working at Microsoft, just chatting about what's going on with the franchise and stuff. And long story short, it seemed like we needed a resurgence. It seemed like, hey, we need to get this game back into the eyes and ears of people that are like, you know, up in the higher echelon of Microsoft to show that people still give a shit. We need to have some sort of rallying event of some kind. This is also 2 years after complete Killer Instinct development had ceased, right? 2 years after Iron Galaxy was off the project, it was done, right? Killer Instinct was done. And most of my impression from this point forward was, oh, there isn't a new Killer Instinct. Like, you would think that Microsoft would have obviously gotten the idea and just passed the baton along, coming up with solutions and stuff like that, but unfortunately, no. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. In 2019, there just was no devs. But long story short, that procced Bring Back KI, where it's like, okay, I get it. This is how this industry works. The only thing we can do, similar to other projects in the future, we just got to make enough noise in some space to get the heads up at these companies to be like, hey, Killer Instinct is pretty sick, and look how many people care about it. We can probably make some money off this, you know? Long story short, that's where we were in 2019. This was a massively successful hashtag campaign that was just meant to get to the eyes and ears of a lot of devs. Every time Phil was on a friggin' podcast, he was asked about Killer Instinct, for God's sake. That brings us to 2021, where this story is, where it's like, okay, so a couple years has passed again. We're now 4 years in between. Nobody's working on KI. Like, it's just kind of stagnating, and it's turning into all the other rare games that are stagnating over at Microsoft. In spring 21, this dude's like, hey man, maybe we should use KI. This one might be a really good game to begin this sort of like, you know, journey on Smash GG, which is also a Microsoft thing now, because of course that makes sense. It was perfect. KI was then on Game Pass, brand new on Game Pass. It had rollback. There wasn't really anyone pushing netplay tournaments for it out on the platform. It's true. It was just small weeklies. So we pitched it to the boss and got approval to reach out to Sajam to be the brand and to do the work on running it. They were given about $3,000, which was the caveat. They split that between marketing. Sajam put some more money for the pot. Before we move on to how this changes, I go a couple of years personally as well, and I'm like, hey man, it's been a couple years since this KI thing has happened, bro, since we did this hashtag KI campaign, and there has been no audible sound in the industry that this franchise is moving forward in some way, which is like a travesty. We ran a tournament. We ran this tournament called Killer Instinct Twitch Rivals hashtag Bring Back KI tournament 2 years later. And this was a follow-up to our crazy Marvel vs. Capcom tournament. And we were like, hey, you know what might be cool is let's just get all of the Killer Instinct community together in one area. We'll also hire Esteban, who did documentary for KI stuff, get him to do new shit. It's a celebration of Killer Instinct. We're gonna literally focus all of the energy of people that just love KI into one spot and see how it goes. We got over 40,000 concurrent viewers on my channel alone, not even including restreams of other channels. Hashtag Bring Back KI event was effing massive. It was insane. Again, Killer Instinct, a game that has been dead for a long time, was now performing once again, where it was like, damn, dude, look at all these people that showed up just to celebrate Killer Instinct in some way. The best players in the world showing up here, the best players in the world showing up there. It was amazing. And this went down at the beginning of 2021, the beginning of 2021. Bringing us back to the story. Numbers came back, things were looking good, successfully brought the users up. Hope was we could draw a partnership with Sajam, either to run a series that rotates rollback enabled titles or to just keep running KI since it's a Microsoft property. Another important thing to note, the only reason that Marvel tournament and the KI tournament happened, which were officially sanctioned tournaments, right? We could not run Twitch Rivals events without effectively the blessing of Marvel Capcom for Marvel 3 and Microsoft for KI. The only reason we kind of got it, I'm thinking, is because I knew the right people to get a hold of. For some reason, some months later in the spring of the same year after we ran a really big KI tournament that got a lot of heads and attention, and a Twitter campaign a couple years back that got a lot of heads and attention, the tournament doesn't happen. The next week, the boss schedules a meetup for the dude that's going to run this KI event, relatively small, and it's with Microsoft Game Studios, and they want us to never do anything like that again. They told me they didn't want to make anyone think they were working on a sequel, and that a Microsoft-sponsored event on Start GG could justify those theories. It didn't make any sense to any of us either, but the idea, the concept was dead, just like that. All I gotta say is that this lines up. There's a lot of stuff happening around this time frame. Everything that I understand, and there's been rumors around this time that they were fishing overseas as well for a developer. No kidding. Like, potentially Bandai Namco, other devs could have been ones that could have actually taken KI, and they just couldn't find anybody. So why in this time frame is it obvious that in 2021 somebody at MS doesn't want to give the idea that we're making a new KI, which is ridiculous? It's because they don't have a dev, and they've probably been bugged about this a whole bunch, and they're like, we don't have a developer, you know? It's weird that they wouldn't want to cultivate their fan base in some way, run events and have their little game that could still perform and keep performing better than most things. Long story short, there is no dev for KI. There is no KI being made. Just more bad news from Microsoft of them not having any clue what to do with their franchises. They have absolutely no idea what to do with their franchises that have done well for them in the past. A lot of people are taking this as a sign that, like, oh, modern KI is going through a resurgence in some way. They got Iron Galaxy back. They're available. They're no longer working on Rumbleverse, right? Clearly, that's a sign that things are different now. They're putting in money into tournaments. There is a new trailer. Look at this trailer, man. Look at it. This trailer's amazing. They have a new trailer and everything. This recently dropped at the Combo Breaker tournament. You know, to highlight the fact that, hey, they have a 10th anniversary version of the game now. It's got a bunch of brand new free content. Working on Steam, it's cross-playing with everything. It's friggin' insane. No, I did not make this trailer. This is one of the few trailers for KI I did not make. So it's like, cool. That is cool that all this stuff is existing, right? It's very cool that all this stuff, this content is existing, but something really irked me about this entire thing, especially after what just happened over the span of the past couple of months, was a lot of the content that was in this game was free. And that sort of gave me a not so good inclination about the future of KI. You could take this and the tournament support and all that stuff, because clearly something is happening at Microsoft. Some people that really like KI at Microsoft are supporting it in some way with this anniversary collection. But recently, Iron Galaxy dudes said that they're not working on it anymore. And also, this reeks of something that happens in this industry a lot, where they'll give you a little bit of a budget to see if people still care, to act as a test. And it's either you can see this as a sign of there being a new KI in the future, because this is all very different than this. It's all very different than what's going on here. It's the exact opposite of what's going on here. Now they're actually supporting this stuff in some way. But at the same time, we're now in the 30th anniversary of KI. We got this 10th anniversary update. Cool. This is all very cool. But the way that it was handled, in my opinion, makes it feel like this is not a sign of there being a new Killer Instinct in the near future. If you were to start a brand new project like a new Killer Instinct in this day and age, with this industry in its current state, with an entire studio that does not have a history of making fighting games or has made the previous KI, it's a 5 to 7 year project, bro. You'll be in like the next generation leading into the generation after that. It would be insane because everyone would have to learn everything all over again. It would be insane. So the only devs that are out there to make this is Iron Galaxy. That's it. If this is the test and it doesn't work out and this doesn't actually push units of the game, you know, which is just, all this thing is telling you everything is free, just go play it. It's crazy to me how, again, Microsoft would take an existing franchise that has done super well in the past and has consistently performed for them over the span of 10 years to now ask people to show up again for the old thing, when what is everybody expecting here? Right? Everybody's expecting a new Killer Instinct. Everybody's expecting, and we just assume, hey, there's a new KI in the background. Of course there is. You can't not have one. That would be insane, right? As we heard back in 2021, they did not want to give you that expectation. All I'm saying is that I still don't expect it. I'm in a spot where I see what's going on here, and I don't initially think of this as really good news about a new KI. I think of this as a sign. This is them effectively testing if their franchise is going to be doing something. And why is it over? Potentially because Microsoft is going through its biggest shakeup in like company history, at least at Xbox side. All things considered, I don't think it's a sign of a new KI. And if you want to support this in any way, you need to like just download and play the game. That's it. That's the only thing you can do. That's it, man. And there's still a ton of people playing it. There's still like plenty of people between all the different versions and crossplay and everything like that. But still, Microsoft's going through like a mad shakeup right now. And before they eventually like grow the head back on their shoulders in order to get some of these things back in line after spending billions of dollars on some megacorp thing, they might turn into a game company again. They just might. And they might actually start making games once again. I'm a little dour on the situation because I've been trying for so many years. I've been trying since 2019 to do everything I possibly can in order to get this shit up to a state where it's like, hey, how much more do we have to do to show you that people care? How much more do we have to do to do something like this? And it feels like this is it. This is the last one, right? This is like effectively the last hurrah for this whole situation. And it's nuts that right now, bro, they have Iron Galaxy. Unless they just got scooped up, they have Iron Galaxy, who made the previous KI, who can make a game twice as fast as any other developer. And you also have like James Goddard at Microsoft, who's like the lead head of KI, and he has a 30-year fighting game history. The stars can align only so much for this franchise. It's rough, man. Like, hey, I'm a Marvel vs. Capcom fan. I have dealt with the worst of it all for the past, like, decade, man. I'll still support Killer Instinct in any way. Killer Instinct and Marvel vs. Capcom are my hero franchises. I'll do fucking anything for them. And I'll also bitch and moan up the mountain if things are not looking good. If anything changes in the future, I'll let you guys know. And hopefully you can go to Steam right now or your Xbox or Windows or whatever and just download the game. It's literally free.